everyone, it's Danica and welcome back to the Writing Nook. Yet again, another video that's not actually in the Writing Nook. It is officially Preptober, one of the best months of the year, one might argue. So I wanted to pop on here and catch you guys up on where I am in my current work in progress, what my plans are for this month, Preptober, and what my plan is for NaNoWRIMO and this work in progress going forward. So settle in and let's get caught up. It's been a long time since I've chatted about my writing on this channel. Life. Gotta love it, right? So, where am I in my current work in progress and also in the world? So if you might have noticed, I'm in a very new location. So I've moved to live with some other family, for the next few months. So you're gonna be seeing some very different backgrounds from me, so look forward to that. As far as my current work in progress, I am still working on Project Red. For those of you who don't remember, this is my YA fantasy enemies to lovers romance, which I started working on in April, Camp Nano, and continued working on in July, sort of. You can check my update video to get more information on what I actually did for July Camp Nano. And I've basically been working on it most of this year. For those of you who remember, in the first Camp Nano of this year, I was plotting using Story Genius, basically going through all of the steps that she outlines in the second part of her book to do a lot of pre-writing and background writing for your characters. My progress on this story has, it's come in fits and starts, as I think that maybe a lot of people can relate to. But I have been working on this background section quite a lot. I've sort of been treating this novel like an iceberg, and I've actually found that this method that kind of Lisa Crone advocates for, of focusing a lot on background, especially before you start writing or before you start plotting, has been very helpful for me as I am starting plotting, which we'll talk about more in just a sec. So I've been spending a lot of time on the background, and I've been working specifically on background for my main character, but I'm also working on background for her main love interest. Given that this is going to be a romance, we should know a decent amount about both of them. Wow. The generator just shut off, so you're welcome. So in the process of doing this, I've been writing my first really fleshed out scenes. Arguably, these are the first scenes that I've written and revised and actively tried to make good since I started writing. When I started last year during NaNoWRIMO, I was just writing as fast as I could to try and get a rough draft of Project Order, and I wasn't trying to polish up those scenes. Then I had a bit of a writing slump, and then I started Project Red, which was mostly just brainstorming and plotting for most of the year. And so in this last month or two, I have actually started writing legitimate scenes, some of them being backstory scenes, and most recently I have written my first scene that's going to go in the timeline of the draft, which is going to go in the draft, not just in the timeline of the draft, but in the draft, which I'm super, super excited about. And so now that I'm actually working on, more line level prose and trying to put a scene together, it's just been a very different experience. And I've been enjoying learning about how I write scenes that I really like and maybe the weaknesses in my current method. So for example, right now, I'm kind of letting inspiration come to me, and I am writing out snippets of scenes as I think of them. This has some pros in that I think I've come up with some really great lines and some great sections of paragraphs that flow really well together. But the downside of this is that when I go and try and organize this scene and put all of my snippets of ideas together, I've been struggling a little bit to make sure that they all actually flow and that the emotional progression makes sense from one beat to the next. So my Frankenstein method has had pros and cons. I'm not sure if it would be better for me to just try and fast draft these scenes and then really revise them. I haven't meaningfully tried that yet, but I've really just enjoyed this little dabble into revision in the smallest possible scale. That was scary. Something just moved behind me. I am in nature. In any case, long story short, on Project Red, I've done a lot of plotting and brainstorming. I haven't filled in every single plot point, but I'm pretty darn close. I've also done really substantial background buildup. I know a lot about my characters, and for the first time in this project, I've been writing actual scenes and learning my process for writing scenes, my process for revising scenes, and actually have come out with a few things that I really am proud of and really do like, which bodes well for me ending up at some point later, I don't know, maybe even a year down the line with a draft that I'm really proud of. So things are looking up for me. So let's talk a little bit about what I'm planning to do this month in Preptober. This month, the plan is to outline the skeleton of Project Red. On Halloween, I would like to have a scene card drafted for each of the major skeleton scenes in my novel. I'm basically going to have scene cards for the major scenes based on kind of the Save the Cat method of outlining, and I'm going to have ideas sketched out for the in-between scenes that will get me from one to the next, but I don't need to have a complete full picture of exactly what's going to happen. So by the end of this month, my hope is that I have a skeleton of the plot. I really understand where I'm going and I have ideas for each scene to get me there, but I don't necessarily need to have each scene fully thought out. I'm basically leaving myself a little bit of room for when I'm drafting to come up with more of that and allow the story to breathe and potentially change. I also would like to finish some of the backstory writing that I'm doing. So I've come up with this kind of complicated but also extremely important background storyline that I would like to have outlined as well. I'm not sure if it's going to be feasible for me to have written this entire storyline because I think it's basically going to be like a background novella, and potentially it'll be so important that like I need to include elements of this or flashbacks to this storyline in the actual draft. But I do want to have a full sketch of what I think has happened because I think that will really impact the plot and how it grows and moves as I'm plotting and then also as I'm drafting. So I'm going to outline skeleton scenes and flesh out the remaining portions of my very important backstory. And all that leaves for us now is what am I doing for NaNoWRIMO, the best month of the year. So my plan for NaNoWRIMO, somewhat unsurprisingly given the rest of this video, is to fast draft Project Red. My hope is to end NaNoWRIMO with a completed first manuscript that at the very least has, you know, a rough sketch of all of the skeleton scenes and a few of these in-between scenes that are going to get me from one to the next. I recognize that 50,000 words is really, really short, given that I am an overwriter. If I really tried to sit down and like thoroughly write everything out, I'll probably end up longer than 50,000. So I'm kind of gonna see where my mood takes me when I start drafting. I'll either just draft those skeleton scenes, or if I'm feeling inspired or, you know, have a really good idea, I'll draft some of those in-between scenes as well. But I'm giving myself a little bit of flexibility in November to determine exactly how I want to write it. In the event that I have 50,000 words at the end of NaNoWRIMO, but still have not finished my draft, I'd like to keep pushing in November so that by the end of this year, I have that full draft. Even if that means just doing the skeleton scenes after the 50,000 to kind of reach the end of the storyline. Because I really think that I'm gonna work best in revision. So I think the quicker that I can get to having, you know, a completed, you know, it's a story with a beginning, middle, and end, the sooner I'm gonna be able to flesh that out, add in more of these subplots, you know, make it more complicated, and it'll feel less overwhelming for me once I have a first full draft than it does when I feel like I can never finish a draft and it's just too big and too overwhelming. As you can see, I'm really losing light. So I am going to wrap it up there. Leave me a comment down below and let me know what your Preptober plans are, and if you have any plans for NaNoWRIMO. What are you going to be working on? Are you doing a new story or are you not? Are you plotting? Are you pantsing? Let me know all of the details down below. Like I said, I'm in a new location, so look forward to lots of new and interesting backgrounds and potentially, you know, very setting sunlight. But yeah, so keep an eye out for more coming from me. Not always gonna be posting the most, but we're posting some, and that's what matters. It is so wonderful to have all of you here, and thank you for sticking around with me, especially as my life is kind of crazy and I'm literally bouncing all over the world. I really appreciate you all sticking around and saying hi when I pop in. Hope you all are doing great. Thank you all very much for watching, and as always, I will see you right back here very soon. Bye! The writing nook is where your laptop is. It's like the writing version of home is where the heart is. I respect you and your home. Oh, sorry about this, guys.